All right, so you could go to a new scene, file, new, general. You create this new scene. You select everything and delete it. What we're going to do is show different ways you could add edges to polygons. So let's add a cylinder. So you could go to either add up here in the viewport, choose mesh and cylinder, or you could press Shift A, mesh, cylinder. We're in object mode, so we'll click the edit mode, or you can press tab to do that. And you'll see in here, actually, let me go back to object mode. Notice these icons over here. These tools were not here when you're in object mode. It's contextual, so if you go into edit mode, you get these extra tools. You can actually be in vertex, edge, or face mode for this. I'll just go to edge in this case. There are a couple of tools you could add in here. Actually, before that, if you move your mouse right at the edge of here, it will turn into arrows. If you click and drag, it will pull out and put them next to each other into two columns. And if you drag even more, it would actually tell you the name of the tool. So we'll leave that for a second. If when you get used to it, you could bring it smaller, or you use the shortcuts. And if you float over the tool, it'll just tell you the shortcut, like how to get the tool without actually pressing it here, so you can move faster once you get used to it. So what we want to do here is use the loop cut tool. One other thing, if you notice some of the icons, even when you have it in small, there'll be like a small, in this case, a light gray triangle in the bottom right corner. That means if you click and, let's say over here on the loop cut tool, if you left click and hold it, you have more options. That's what that means. So right now I'm choosing the loop cut tool. I'll bring this out again so we could actually see the name, loop cut tool. What this loop cut tool does is when you float over edges, by default, it will look at parallel edges and put a new edge loop in between, exactly halfway between those edges. So if I now left click, there's a new edge that's added here. One thing I could do, if I press Control Z to undo it, if I float over this, you'll see that there is a shortcut, Control R, you see on the bottom there, or you could press Shift Spacebar. So if you do Control R, it will just make that tool. Well, it was already there before, so I'll press Control Z to undo. I'll go back to select, so nothing's selected right now. Now I press Control R, and that tool is activated, even though it doesn't show up here. And I can click. One thing is when you click, if you click and hold, you could drag up and down. Let's do that again. Control R, left click and hold, and I could drag it where I want it, left, up or down, or left or right if your model is going left and right. And one other thing as well is that down here, before you switch tools, you have the loop cut and slide. You have extra options here. A lot of these tools, once you place it, you have extra options. And one of them is you could add more number of cuts in it. And you could also choose the smoothness between those cuts. And you see under that where it says the fall off, that's basically from where the cut is, the profile. Right now it's an inverse square, so that shape is kind of like what the shape, so it's extra. You have to think of it on the side right now because this is up and down. But on the side, with those extra edges, we'll try to make that shape. So if you take this and let's say linear, and I push that out, they're going to try to be more linear in shape. If I do sphere is more rounded to address that. And then you have factor here that basically is going to bias it to move it more up and down along the way. I'm going to press Control Z to undo this. Oh, I said you could use Control R to get this. You could also do Shift Spacebar and you get these tools that are available. So if you press Shift Spacebar, you have that. And then you have the shortcuts right next to it. And it still tells you the same thing. Like in this case, you press Control R to go to the loop cut tool. Now, one thing about that, let me just go back to select mode. I'll just press the loop cut tool over here right now. If I float over it, while floating, do not left click yet and just scroll. Left after you, when you click, actually, that's not the method it's supposed to do. Let me Control Z to undo. If I use the loop to go over here, and let's say I click to move, moving it up and down here. So this seems to work when you use the shortcut version of this. So if I go above the loop cut tool, so instead of clicking here, if I use a shortcut Control R, you see on the bottom in the description there, it says Control R. So if I press Control R and I don't move, if I hover over the geometry and don't move the mouse, then if I use a scroll wheel, instead of zooming in and out, it will add the cuts in here for me. If I were to go in here, try to cut it, try to do that and then zoom in and out, if I actually click on the button and float over and try to zoom in and out, you see that it actually moves the viewport, or zooms in and out the viewport. Where I want to say zoom in and out, I mean roll the mouse scroll wheel. And so if I go to select mode, Control R, and I hover over, so Control R is using the shortcut instead of pressing the button, and now I use the mouse scroll wheel, it will add the cuts. But again, if you're using this, or you can press the loop cut tool, click here, let's say you add it, then you have that mode over here, this extra configuration, and then you could add the cuts here yourself. Okay, so here with the loop cut, you can left click and hold because it has a triangle button down there, and you could use offset. For this to work, what this tool does, offset edge loop slide, you basically need to select an edge loop. So, well, okay, let's go back, left click and hold back to loop cut. We'll make a loop cut here, and then I could go in here and actually, well, it's already selected, but if I go into still in edit mode in edge, make sure it's edge mode, you see you can select the individual edges. So if you hold Alt and click an edge, you'll select the whole edge loop in edge mode. Now this tool could work. So if you go to loop cut, left click and hold, go to offset edge loop slide. So you have that mode now. Now if you click on this, you might have to go down or up. In this case, for me, it's down. What it's going to do is generate two new edge loops set from both sides, like that, for you. So if I click, let's say here, well, that's edge click. If I go back to the select mode, I click here, hold Alt and click, then select this, and I can move it. I could add edges this way. Another tool, I'm just going to left click and put this back to loop cut. So that's the default. I'll probably use most often. I don't think I use this that often, but you never know, depending on the tools and depending on what type of things you model in your day-to-day work. So another tool that's very useful is the, where is it actually? Actually, it's here. If I left click here and go to knife, the knife tool, you should have knife tool if you haven't changed anything here. The knife tool, what this does allows you to basically make your edges how you want them. So if I want to float over here and start clicking, I could make my own edges. So you could draw out a certain thing. Usually when you draw, you want to either connect, it will snap to a vertex or snap to an edge when you create it. But you could also do it in the middle of a face, though like over here, that might not be good practice in terms of modeling, in terms of conventions, how you model. Like for certain things, if you're modeling, you probably want to use quads or four-sided faces. You don't want to have, things called n-gon or floating edges like this. But we're not talking about the theory right now of how to model. It's actually adding edges up there. If you press escape, it'll cancel everything you've done. And to finish it, you have to press enter. So I'm going to add point here. Even if you go across multiple, it will make those cuts across. I'm going to make a point inside the face. Usually you want to go, let's say, to a corner and press enter. Press enter to finish it. I'll go into select mode and go into vertex mode. And most cases I'm cutting through. So either most cases you probably want to go on an edge, or you want to snap to a corner here, but you probably don't want to cut in a floating face like that unless you make an edge that connects. But again, we'll talk about modeling theory later. If we go to the vertex and select this one vertex, if you want to, let's say, delete it, you could press the delete button, but you'll see there's an option now. It doesn't just delete it. It's going to ask you what you want to delete. If I say vertices, what's going to happen is you'll make a hole. So I'll press Control Z. What you want to do is delete, but say dissolve vertices. And what will that do is just get rid of the vertex in between and make the edge from the before and after vertex. And the shortcut for the knife tool, if I float over here, is K. So you press K and you're in the knife tool, and then you can start cutting. Or you could also do, press enter to finish that. Or you could also do shift spacebar, and then you get these menus here. And you'll see that again, the knife tool is K. So you could either go down to it and press K, or click on it. And there you have the knife tool. I'll press escape to stop that. And the other tool I would like to show is, if you left click and hold the knife tool, there's a bisect tool. Usually I like to remember to go back, because usually the first one is the one you use the most. But the bisect tool, what this allows you to do, it's screen space, or basically what you see and goes into the viewport. If you left click and drag, it's going to make a cut across the whole model, but only what's selected. So right now I only had one edge selected. So I'll press Control Z. What you could do is either select everything, go into, let's say, select box mode, or go, let's say, to edge, select all the edges. Or I could go to vertices, select all the vertices. Then if you go to bisect, if you left click and hold and then drag, it will not cut anything. So let's undo that. Another way to do it, if you press the A button, if I go to select and press A, or go to select and press all, then go to bisect and then cut. Now you see that it's highlighting. It's only cut what was selected. So now you have a cut that's across. Again, like a lot of the tools you have, before you finish it, you have an opportunity to adjust it. So you can adjust the placement over here by clicking, you'll have an option down here to click to open it up. You could move the Y and Z, and the normal is the direction of what you see. Another way, because this manipulator is actually in the scene, you could actually just move this manipulator up and down and click this other one to rotate it to help adjust how. Well, let me just redo that to make it click here. I'll go and cut again. Now I could take this tool and move it up and down, or adjust it, or you could click down here and try to do it with the numbers, depending on your situation, which way works best for you. Now, once you're done, you could press, go like to select mode, deselect, and then you have those cuts that are made. And then you could do things like, if you wanted to go to the face mode, maybe you wanted to cut a specific thing when you're modeling, like an environment, you could delete the faces. Well, you have to go into the X-ray mode to be able to select the back. Press delete, then say faces. For example, faces, delete faces, and then you can delete all these. This is just an example if you wanted to do a clean cut for a specific reason, for a specific look for the model. Get out of X-ray mode. I'm missing those. You could also just select these by holding Shift, clicking, and delete. Go to delete faces. So if you're going for a specific model, go back to object mode, and it had that specific cut. The cut tool could help for that. So I'll press Control Z a couple of times to go back. So One other thing you'll notice that when you're in edit mode, but right now in object mode, if you go to edit mode, you get these new options in the menus in the viewport, mesh, vertex, and edge. If I'm not in edit mode and back in object mode, you don't have those. It's contextual. So if we go into edit mode, you have mesh options, vertex options, and edge options. One of them I just want to show you of how to create more edges is if I go into edit mode, go to edge, and I'll select some edges. I hold shift, left click on my mouse button and select some edges. What you could do is under the edge, you could subdivide. So one other thing though, to get these menus, if you press Control V, you'll have the vertex menu, which is the same as this one. Control E is the edge menu. So Control E, and then Control F. Control F is the face menu. That's the same as up here. So I'll do it from here. I'll go to edge, and one very useful tool is subdivide. So notice the edges here. If I go to edge and press subdivide, it will actually add more. It will cut them for you in that sense. So if I were to, let's say, select a bunch of these, I press Control Z, a bunch of these, edge, subdivide. Well, in this case, it didn't cut it because I made a bunch of crazy cuts. And so it didn't do it in an intuitive way. Actually, let me go into object mode. I'll delete this. Shift A to go to add, or you can click up here to add mesh. And we could choose a plane. So right now the plane, we go back to edit mode for the plane. And let's see the vertices. There's only 4 vertices and just 2 edges. So if I go to select all the edges, go to edge, subdivide, you'll see that it splits it in 2, like in both directions that way.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.